So as being a part of GroupM, I'm taking on a pretty senior level role across the entire ecosystem of Wavemaker, running investment and activation. A lot of my career, though, that kind of set me up to get here was predicated in ad tech. So, heavily involved in data technology to inform a greater outcome from our media ecosystem. So using that skill set and then going into the client world, by using those two pieces, I've been able to leverage that into moving into this future state of kind of where our ecosystem's headed. So, it was a little bit of a roundabout way, touching all sides of the ecosystem, both tech side, agency side, client side, and now coming back into the mix of the agency world is a really exciting time as we're at a pivotal moment of our kind of really the intersection of our entire ecosystem as we pivot into the future of where video's headed.
Yeah. So, you mentioned outcomes right off the bat, so we're going to get into that.
Yes.
But, there's lots of different kinds of outcomes. There's obviously sales as an outcome. There's also upper funnel, middle funnel metrics as well, or could be considered outcomes. Let me just stay on that point. So when you think about outcomes, but yet you're working with major brands, how do you reconcile when you say outcomes? What do you mean by outcomes?
Well, I think that's got varying degrees, as you're mentioning. Outcomes can mean many different variables, whether it be sales based, whether it be incremental reach based. We have to do what's best for each client and their respective nature of how they're going into the media upfront season. Some of the big things that we have to look at and really set up those guardrails in place to make sure that if you're in the pharmaceutical category, your outcome is going to be a lot different than if you're in the CPG category, where you may be looking at two avenues of sales driven metrics and or reach metrics. So we have to kind of play on all sides of the fence there and not just pick one versus the other. There's definitely not a one size fits all. It's categorically driven, but most of the ecosystem today thinks about it from a demographic based outcome. And I think we have to play both sides of that fence. Is demographic our currency? Is it today and will it be in the future? And then really, how do we take a data driven approach to both linear and every other channel to use those insights to both inform the activation side, but then also all the way downstream into the lower funnel side of what a true outcome means for our specific brands and the nature of their business.
Okay, and when you talk about data driven, how do you need technology to do that? I'm assuming you're going to say yes, because I know you. So talk a little bit about how you see technology being deployed in order to use data to get a data-driven result.
So yes, I would clearly emphatically say yes. You know me all too well, but I do think, to really build out an ecosystem, your data infrastructure is so important to thinking through what it is from a planning perspective, a buying perspective, and an outcomes perspective. So how do you really think about your core consumer is so key and imperative to building out what a data-driven ecosystem looks like. When we talk about demographics as a currency, every platform today can plan on a demographic. Mm-hmm. But what about those extra audience insights you have? What about the affinities to your brand and the whether it be a purchase-based segment, whether it be a family of 2, 3, 4, 5? How do you use those advanced audience metrics to really hone in both advancement and demographic data sets? Yeah. Similar to your platforms like the Amobi platforms like Video Amp in the space. There's others out there who allow you to think that way, but I think we've got to hone in and really create a structure with technology as that layer that informs our media ecosystem. And I think from what we've seen early stages as we go to the upfronts, there's a few platforms who are separating themselves from the pack very quickly, and are really exciting to work with in this data-driven linear ecosystem that we can't wait to start working with.
Oh, great. That sounds good. Let's talk about cross-platform. Let's talk about audiences and cross-platform. So it's on everyone's mind. I just want to understand how you and your guys you're new there. You're 6 or 7 weeks in, but yep. How are you thinking about cross-platform and being able to unify audiences to control for things like reach and frequency, but also other more powerful, as you said, lower funnel metrics. So let's talk about cross-platform and the audience.
Definitely more powerful lower funnel, but I actually do think it starts with that first bit you talked about is in control. And by understanding truly your audience ecosystem, the ability to control the frequency of that household and notice how I'm separating household and user from each other. I think household is incredibly important to really focus on how we control the reach and frequency of a certain household. By controlling frequency and extending reach, you're inherently building your high value audiences upwards. We talk a lot about how brands grow in the 80-20 rule, but you can't really continually grow that business if you're continually talking to the same people over and over again. So how do you control the overexposure that we're gaining in a linear ecosystem? By mitigating how much you're spending there from certain aspects using data-driven platforms to then extend reach cross-channel. And by doing that, it then allows you to really build out what your household penetration will look like, which inherently should grow your bottom line in sales. And I think that's the first and foremost control factor when you think about how important audience is. And then from there, how do you take the ability to know you've extended reach, you're building your brand up to other people who may not be working with you, and then start taking those reach metrics and correlating them back to, are you seeing the growth in the business, the bottom line, the revenue drivers, whether it be an attribution base where you can tie it together, or whether it be, think about a CPG brand who doesn't necessarily own the end game and is providing their data and products to manufacturers where they may not have that closed loop. But if they're growing household penetration and start seeing sales increasing on the retail side, now you're seeing two things work really well together. So I think it's that control factor all the way in the beginning stages of not only knowing how much frequency you're getting, but then the ability to stop it when you've gotten to a point of no return, and then extend it into omni-channel media presence.
Okay, good. So control, that's an interesting word. All right, the final question for you. So it's upfront season. You're going to the upfront. You're not a traditional TV guy. And now you're going to the upfronts for the first time in a big leadership role. Well, how do you, obviously, they've been around for a long time. How do you see them evolving? How do you think they need to evolve over the next few years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to your point, my traditional hat has not always been on, but I do think, the way that we're thinking about this ecosystem more than ever before is separating out what we're confusing a little bit in the marketplace of linear versus streaming versus OTT and all the nomenclature that goes behind it. And the reality is that screen, that television ecosystem has never been consumed more than ever before. And with that, understanding that the marketplace has diminishing returns in supply across linear capabilities, we're still looking at is what is the whole screen with these broadcast partner going to give us? Their capabilities have only grown. There's a plus on the back end of every single broadcast partner right now that allows you to have content at your fingertips.
Right.
And there is nothing more powerful than that because it's on the big screen still, and those eyeballs are still there. So what we're working on really holistically is not only do we have to think about it from a linear perspective, but those eyeballs that are leaving, what content are they still consuming within those broadcast partners? And how do we leverage these new areas like a Peacock, like a Paramount to get integrated for holistic buying ecosystems versus just separating out linear and digital? How do we integrate brands presence across everything within those environments? I think is really important. And that's why the upfronts are still important. I think the discussions in the upfronts are just changing a bit into a much more data-driven conversation. But that doesn't mean we should do analysis paralysis and overthink some of this because those eyeballs are still watching that big screen. We just have to find the right mix for every brand. A pharmaceutical client's going to be a lot different than a new to economy or D2C client where they want to shift off and be in a scatter marketplace and talk to people on the go because of the ability to quickly measure. Whereas, a pharmaceutical brand has an older clientele, we have to be in linear because we're going to get those eyeballs there. So every category is different. And I think these upfronts are more important than ever before on having these holistic conversations and not just one-sided linear driven.